behind it.
Hello, it's been a long 2 weeks away from Premier League action, but it's back with a bang.
We have a mouth-watering encounter between mentor and student as Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta lock horns.
Both Spurs and West Ham are flying, but one winning run will come to an end surely on Sunday.
And Jurgen Klopp will be biting at the bit to get back to winning ways following their Villa thrashing. But Carlo Ancelotti will be looking to keep the blue half of Merseyside smiling.
Ancelotti can really now make his mark. A team with some stardust now.
Their best opening to a season since 1894.
Bring on the champions.
It's Rodriguez, and it is absolutely brilliant.
By Robertson, flicked out by Strauch and hit by Salah. This is a firework night. In by Dino, wonderfully attacked by Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Oh, it's delightful. Firmino, Mane! Truly beautiful. That's why they're champions.
And here's Rodriguez. And Grealish is in again. And this could be 7. History made. The first time that Premier League champions have ever conceded 7 in a game.
It's Coleman, the lovely move this, and tucked away by Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Irresistible, irrepressible, irrespective of the opposition. Bring on the champions.
Well, they couldn't really be coming into this game in different moods, Liverpool and Everton. Tim Sherwood and Julien Laurent are here. And it's been 10 years since Everton have beaten Liverpool.
Yeah.
This is the chance, isn't it? We've said that a few times, but if they're ever going to do it, this is the one.
Well, yes, you have to say that coming off of Liverpool's last result, coming up against an Everton side that started the season magnificently. Let's have it right. They're playing fantastic football. They've got some very good signings. Alan, Decore, obviously James Rodriguez. So you're looking at a team now that looks like they're ready to do what Everton have threatened to do many years. They seem to be getting it now. It seems to be happening. So, but we'll have to see what happens. We'll see what happens in this game. And then we see how they can progress, how they can remain consistent, because that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, they've had the win against Tottenham, but otherwise it's been maybe teams, although looking at the run of results, but maybe teams that they would be expected to beat, the likes of West Ham and Brighton for Everton. But it's the confidence that they're going to bring into this derby, isn't it?
Yeah, they can't be higher on confidence. You know, Wrighty's absolutely right. The signings have hit the floor running. They all look fantastic. We've got a poor goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford who's making mistakes, but in spite of him, they're still top of the league. I disagree, though. I think it's not a good time to play Liverpool. I think it's the first time we've seen a capitulation like that. They are the champions. They're the champions for a reason, because they've got a leader in Jurgen Klopp who demands a certain level of performance, and obviously the international break would have hurt him because he hasn't had the time to work with the boys for the last 2 weeks. But he'll make sure they're right. I mean, we saw a player sitting on the bench there at Aston Villa in Jordan Henderson. For sure, he will be back in that starting lineup, because with him in the team, I don't think they would have seen that capitulation. They were void of a leader. We thought Van Dijk was that man, but he seemed like he had no control over the game. It just got away from him. They have to put it down to a blip. But for me, if I'm Everton, I would have wished they would have won that game because they are going to be wounded and they're going to come out fighting. And I think it's a difficult game for Everton.
Tim was talking about the fact that the players aren't really going to have had full training sessions in these 2 weeks because they've been off on international duty. But not all of them have been away. And some of them that have been, like Jordan Henderson, it's probably been good for him to get a bit of game time with England. Game time, practice, I think, sharpness and match fitness after being injured at the start of the season. You think about Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, for example, for different reasons, but not being involved with the national team. And on the contrary, Richarlison and James Rodriguez had to go to South America to play with Colombia and Brazil. So did Roberto Firmino. So maybe in the end it sort of levels up. But certainly the last 2 weeks, Carlo Ancelotti would have had maybe more players to work with at training than Jurgen Klopp. And that might play a part in the game on Saturday. Although when things are going as well as they have been for Everton under Carlo Ancelotti, it looks as though his message has got through to those players that it's just continuing with what he wants them to do. Because as well as bringing in those signings who've started so well, it seems that the players really know what their roles are within that setup.
Yeah, they do, and you can't take away from, obviously you have to mention Dominic Calvert-Lewin and the way he has progressed under Carlo Ancelotti. And you have to say, you know, I think I mentioned it before at one stage, that if they did remember when everybody was clamouring, well, how come we haven't replaced Lukaku? How come we haven't replaced Lukaku? And the thing with that is that it gave them the opportunity to continue to play Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You know, he wasn't scoring the goals as frequently as he's scoring them now, but he was in the team and gaining Premier League experience, so that you think to yourself, if he does start getting the kind of service and getting into the box where he is, you see, I'm always telling you, Kels, where he is, then he's going to start scoring goals. So I think it worked in Everton's favour for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to actually, to them to not sign a player after Romelu Lukaku. Now he is already there for them. He's not falling in their lap, but he's come good. You know, you look at someone like Richarlison. When he went there for the 40 million, everyone was saying, oh, my God, how can they pay that money for him? Richarlison, for me, is one of the top young players in the world. When you look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like I say, you look where he is, you know, on the shoulder, just getting goals like that. They all count, you know. He's in there, the one-touch finishes, brilliant header again there. You know, he's somebody now with the service. And the fact that Everton now, Kels, they're not so in such a rush to get forward, Jules. You see them now, Tim. They're not blasting it forward. They're playing it now, taking their time, looking for openings.
Is that because they can rely on Calvert-Lewin to convert those chances? And
they can rely on the fact that if it goes into him, he'll link it up with James Rodriguez, and they keep the ball in that third of the field where you can start really creating chances and making things happen.
Well, what do you make of his development as a striker, from someone who's kind of been around the squad, has become more of a permanent fixture, but now, as Wrighty said, his role is more refined, it's more specific, isn't it?
I think for now, Dominic must feel like previously he was a poor relation, and all of a sudden now the manager like Carlo Ancelotti, who's won 15 major honours in his career, is really stuck with him. And that gives a player like Calvert-Lewin such confidence. You know, you've got a man, they've tried it. You know, Moise Keane's come in there. They've tried to bring strikers in under the nose of this boy. And he must be thinking, well, they're trying to find the solution. I need to be that solution. And in the end, it's good coaching from Ferguson as well. I mean, Duncan Ferguson's helped him out hugely. He's a player in a similar mould to Calvert-Lewin. And Ancelotti, the top manager, you know, who's been around with world-class players, who's just told him a few things. Stay in the width of the goalpost, work on your first time finishing. And when he scored in the first game, a fantastic header away at Tottenham. And then he's continued to score. The confidence is so high. He feels like he will score in every single game. Whereas before, he was thinking, well, I'm going to sit next to the manager. You know? And now he knows he's the mainstay striker.
Yeah. You know what was really evident is that when they played Tottenham last season, and we're talking about, I don't know, maybe from July to when they played them this season, the change in the team is literally just on its head, the way they played. It was quite a dreary game. It weren't a great game, but like the way they played them this time, they were all over Spurs. And this is what we're seeing from Everton now, is a brand of football that they're probably going to move forward with, because they've got them two in the midfield, Decore and Allen. As the base, Jules.
It would be a midfield battle again anyway, because Liverpool have been so strong in that department. And now with Doucouré, Allen and Andre Gomez probably will play now he's fully fit, against Henderson probably, and Wijnaldum and Fabinho or Keita or Thiago maybe, whoever Jurgen Klopp plays as. But this is where, if Everton can dominate like they did against Spurs or in the other games, I think Liverpool would really struggle to feed the front three, and also they would be exposed defensively.
And it's also, as Wrighty said, because they can be more patient, or they can be more patient in their build-up, because they've brought in someone like James, whose demise was sort of prematurely reported, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, although if you look at the numbers, apart from last season where really he fell out with Zidane and was not playing, but even at Bayern Munich, it was not too bad. But certainly before that, at Real Madrid, he had some really good numbers in terms of goals and assists. And I think the talent that was always there, it was more about putting him in the right environment, good attitude, let's work all together, let's be a big family, we all love you. And I think he needs to be loved a lot. But that left-hand side, the right-hand side with James, the left-hand side with Richarlison, and look at Digne as well, for me, he's one of the best left-back in the country, is really, really dangerous for whoever plays against Everton. And I think Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold would have to be very careful against Richarlison and Digne.
Yeah, absolutely.
For James, though, and the role that he plays, he's going to be key to whatever Everton do this season.
Yeah.
It's about whether or not he can maintain that bounce and that level of energy throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, because like you say, with the Real Madrid and not the game time he didn't get. Yes, he got some more game time at Bayern Munich, but we're talking about two teams that are not going to, excuse me, they're not going to make someone like James Rodriguez their main guy, the guy that they're building the team around, like Everton are doing. And what we're seeing is that with a team like Everton, if you can build a team around someone like James Rodriguez, you are going to get a lot of joy. You look at him picking up the ball, excuse me, going to be afraid to get on the ball anywhere on the field, and he can create.
I think he's really enjoying the fact that he's a big fish in a small pond, you know, with respect to Everton Football Club. But he's been at two of the world giants, you know, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. And he's just another player. And I think his best performance we've ever seen, James Rodriguez, is for Colombia when they build a team around him. And I think he's getting that same environment now. He's very difficult to pick up. He plays on that right-hand side. He comes into the pocket where the left-back doesn't really want to come on him. And if it's Seamus Coleman who's occupying the left back and he creates that space for him, he drifts in, he's got a good knack of knowing when to stand still and he finds the ball. And when he gets the ball and he gets his head up, the strikers move. They know that he's got the ability to be able to find them with the pass. And which was really refreshing when he scores a couple of goals in his last game. He's trapping that back post. When the ball is on the other side, he's not standing out here just trying to look pretty. He's actually getting in the danger area on a 6-yard box. He's had 2 tap-ins. They looked easy. There wasn't easy finishes.
We've talked a lot about how well Everton are doing and how well it's going for them. But we've already seen this season that anything can happen, and there will be difficult patches for them. What's James Rodriguez like in that kind of situation? When you talk about how much he needs to be loved, how he likes being that big fish and that star player, what's he like when it's not going so well?
And we were saying with Wrighty a bit and Tim before the show, it's like now he's travelled to Colombia as well to play those 2 qualifiers. He will have to come back. I think physically at some point he might have a dip because he hasn't played much for the last 18 months. And suddenly is the intensity of the Premier League. He's playing almost every 3 days, pretty much, let's say. Travelling as well with the national team, coming back. There's this big game now and I wonder if at some point physically he will struggle a little bit. And then Carlo will have to find another way of having that creativity. Yeah. If James is a bit down, maybe you will give Sigurdsson to the team, or Andre Gomez, you push him up a bit more, or something like that. But if he's not on a good day, I think they will struggle a bit to create.
I want to ask you as well about this kind of identity that Everton are building, because they do have a very kind of strong sense of who they are as a club and what they stand for. It was David Moyes who sort of coined the phrase the People's Club for Everton. Seamus Coleman came from Ireland, famously, as the song goes, for £40,000, and then he's come in and he's really sort of taken on that sort of feeling around the club. He's had these meetings where he's shown players videos of Everton teams in the past, what it means to be an Everton player. And I thought you'd probably be the best person to answer this, because having gone to Arsenal, not as an Arsenal fan, but now being so much part of their fabric, how important is that sense of belonging? Well,
it's once you understand what it means to the fans, I suppose you could say the same with once you find out what it means with Liverpool and how the Liverpool fans are. It's no different with Everton, obviously. But
the point is with Liverpool, at the moment you can say they were European champions, then they were Premier League champions. So you can attract players from success.
Of course,
but when you're trying to teach someone why the club's important, why it matters.
Well, the thing is that when you look at Everton's history, you know what I mean, unfortunately, they're literally in the shadow of Liverpool. I know they had their 1984 and they played brilliantly, had a great team at that time. But yeah, I think that Seamus Coleman, to do that, to make people understand what it's about, it's a masterstroke from his point of view, because you do get a connection, you do feel a connection. You know, it's a connection that someone like Duncan Ferguson now, you know, he's got the tattoo, he's got everything now, what he feels for the club. It's the same with me, like with Arsenal. Arsenal have always been a team that we supported from the estate because of David Rocastle. Yeah. You know, I went through with Palace and everything, but the Palace fans are upset with me because they think that I've jumped onto Arsenal. Yeah. But when David came off our estate and went to play, the whole estate supported Arsenal, and that is the kind of thing you try to show people. And like, if people came back to our estate, we'd explain to them why we support them. And it's the same thing what Seamus Coleman's doing inadvertently. He's showing them what it means to this side of Liverpool and what it means to play for Everton, and why at some stage now you look at him with Merseyside and what he's looking to put in with that manager, you can see something's happening special there.
Is it just a PR thing with the fans, if you like, when players talk about the connection with the club? Or is it something that you can get genuine results from? You can get that little bit more out the players.
I think
the
so.
team.
And as a manager, you get more time. If you're giving the fans what they want. I played against them in 1987. I made my debut.
They won the league that year.
Yeah, they won the league. They were the champions. And when I come off that pitch, I was thinking, it was my first game ever. I played for Watford against them at Goodison. And it was the atmosphere. I mean, it was just a blur. I was thinking, surely it's not going to be this difficult every single week. If you wanted to get the ball down, they would get the ball down, they'd pop it around you. If you wanted to have a fight and get more aggressive, they would beat you up. That is what they expect. On the stands there, they expect to get everything. You roll your sleeves up, but we need a bit of flair. We need to get the ball forward. We need to get it early. They've always had a big number 9. It was Graham Sharp when I was playing. They've always had it. Duncan Ferguson. Now they've got one.
Andy Gray before him. Bob Latchford.
Are we going to mention Gary Lineker?
That was it big.
Yeah.
Get the ball wide, get the cross in there, get in behind. But when it's right to play, mix the game up. And I think they've got the blend there. We talked about their midfield now with the Correa and Allen and Rodriguez. They can play now as well. They not only blood and thunder all of the time and get the ball forward and never have a breather and get caught defensively. I think Carlo has understood that. And I think that's great management by his part. Any other manager at the back end of last season, the way they performed, probably on the brink of getting sacked. Because he's such a good manager, they give him the time, they give him the money, they give him his own players now, and they're reaping the rewards. Albeit, it's just the start. The bubble will burst this weekend.
But that point about the style is an important one, because historically Everton is the school of science. They were known in the early days for playing football the way that we think of football being played beautifully now.
Yeah, and Carlo Ancelotti, on the other hand, has never been an ideologist like Pep Guardiola or even Jurgen Klopp, but certainly he knows how to get the best of his team, well organised. His son Davide is a big part of the coaching staff as well with the players, and I think he had a very clear idea of how he wanted to play. He just needed the players, as we said. Alan in the holding role, Doucouré to be that box-to-box player, Andre Gomez is a bit more technical, and then they know exactly what to do with their fullbacks, to do with the wide players. Calvert-Lewin knows exactly what to do as well, and I think he starts with that, and then I think he shows them a lot of love, which I think they needed to.
And what we've covered a lot over the opening weeks of the season is the fact that their weakest position probably at the moment is goalkeeper, which is something that Liverpool will be looking to exploit, except for the fact, and I know you're saying that the Everton bubble is going to burst this weekend, except for the fact that Alisson is not going to be back for Liverpool. It's going to be Adrian in goal. How much more difficult does that make it for Liverpool?
Oh, that's a bigger blow. I mean, we talked about Jordan Henderson. I mean, let's get it right. The first game of the season, I've never seen him play as well. He won that game against Tottenham single-handedly. I mean, Tottenham had a lot of good chances. Yes, they didn't play well, but they still would have won the game, apart from Pickford. Pickford was outstanding in that game. And I was waiting the whole game thinking, well, there must be a mistake soon, because generally there is, unfortunately, but it never come. So that is where he needs to play. That's the level of what he needs to try and play every single week. It's very difficult for him because he makes mistakes.
So he's a great goalkeeper who occasionally makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Whereas Adrian...
But Adrian, last season when Adrian came in when Alisson was injured for that shorter period, looks like Alisson's going to be out for another month, 6 weeks still. So he's going to have to get it right. Jurgen... I think they still could have gone into the transfer market. They didn't.
There was talk about Jack Butland, wasn't there?
Yeah, he still go to the Championship until Friday to possibly do that. If he doesn't do it, I think it'll give Adrian a confidence boost to say, no, I'm persevering with you. You made a mistake in that game at Aston Villa. It was the first goal of the game, which is the crucial one, but we'll crack on. I don't think they can try and make him play like Alisson out from the back. Do what you're comfortable doing. The main priority for me as a goalkeeper is keeping the ball out of the back of the net and be able to catch it.
But if you're coaching them, does that change how you set your defence?
Exactly.
And is that difficult to do when you've not had the players there for 2 weeks?
Kels, they love playing this high line. They're playing it all the time now. He's not out of his goal. He's not comfortable sweeping up there. He's not the quickest out of his line, where Alisson will read the situations and he'll be on top of it. They have to change, they have to adapt. That's what Jurgen gets paid the big bucks for. That's why he's a quality manager. That's why they're the champions. I'm sure he will adapt this weekend.
I find it very difficult for them to do something like that, simply because of the way they're playing. It's regimented in them now. They play out from the back. So I'm more surprised that they haven't trawled a world for a goalkeeper that can... So if Alisson comes out, and Alisson's he's had a little bit of injury problem since he's been at Liverpool. So you'd have thought that that's something they would have been doing really vehemently in respect of having to find that backup guy who is going to come in and at least we're going to still be able to play out from the back.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, that's something from Liverpool's point of view that I was very surprised with. But
Everton got him.
Olsen.
But the thing is that you look at the way they're playing this high line Liverpool, and I heard Andy Robertson talk about when Arsenal played, and we know they've got quick players, so we kind of pleased. We caught them offside a couple of times. So it's obvious they're trying to do that. They're not going to change that against Everton, and it's all going to come down to their closing down of the midfield. Because if they've got time, Everton's midfield, and they play with that, and they play with that high line with Richarlison, James Rodriguez on the ball, Gomez, they're going to get punished again.
And as Wrighty said, Alisson was injured at the beginning of last season. He got injured in the opening game against Norwich. Adrian came in, did all right there, and then went off and won like the Super Cup and the World Club Championship with Liverpool. So it was a nice start to his career, which maybe glossed over the fact that he wasn't and isn't the keeper that Alisson is. Whether there is no disgrace in that,
No.
in being second to Alisson. However, is he good enough to be a number two to Alisson? Because Liverpool they aren't reactionary in the transfer market. If there's a goalkeeper they want, it will be somebody that they've looked at for a while.
Yeah, and let's not forget that when they signed Adrian, he was training back in Spain with the sixth division team. No one wanted it. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a weird one, and maybe they thought Alisson is indestructible anyway. He would never get injured, and then obviously a few weeks later he did. Yeah. I think the Atletico Madrid game, psychologically, maybe when Adrian's performance cost them really the qualification, maybe has changed something in Adrian, and he hasn't really been the same since. No. So I think it's a big issue, and I agree with the boys. I would have gone and signed someone else.
I tell you, I think he's very fortunate there's no fans in. He's one of those. He's one of those that might be taking advantage of that, because I just feel like right now, especially when you watch the game against Villa, and we've got to remember as well there was 3 deflected goals in there. Do about stuff like that, but he makes the kind of saves. Look at that line, unbelievable. Yeah. He makes the kind of saves, Alisson, that gets your team going again.
When you're looking at it now, Wrighty, this guy, does it look like an outfield player? You know, they talk about bringing in, look at the numbers there. I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
He's not far off, I suppose, in saves per game. It's the only one that he's not too far behind Alisson on, but the percentage of shots that he saves, even the way that, like you were talking about that relationship with the defence, his passing accuracy isn't great
it's
on
clean
that.
sheets as well, Kels.
And conceding double. I mean, look, his figures, given that he's only played 12 games, his figures are going to be massively affected by 7 against Aston Villa.
And not only that, I mean, Wrighty would tell you, as a striker, you need a rhythm, and as a goalkeeper, you certainly do. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to keep getting thrown in and then brought out again when the main man's ready. I'm surprised, like Jules has said, they never went to the market. I'll be very surprised if they went for Jack Butland, because he's making mistakes playing in the Championship. If they were going to go to the Championship, I would think they would go and get the best goalkeeper in the Championship. You know, they're in that market now. Go and get a Ben Foster, someone who's got that wealth of experience. Who go in there, and you, as a back four, you would think, we've got him behind us. We know. They won't admit it, but they will be a wee bit nervous. And when Jurgen gets him back, as he's had him in today, and he'll have him in tomorrow, and he worked towards the weekend's game, and he starts tweaking the line a little bit and talking, it's only because of one thing, because he's not sure about Adrian.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they can't do anything about that as things stand at the moment. So it's about not conceding those chances, and what Liverpool have to do in order to stop Adrian being put in that position as often as he was in the game against Aston Villa. Because you can talk about 3 deflected goals as much as you like, but it was 3 chances. It
was 3 chances, and, you know...
Well, I mean, 3 chances that were deflected as opposed to the 4 other goals.
But at the same time, you know, we've Liverpool's line and how they're playing is not new. We know. But it's got to have something to do with the closing down now. Because what Villa showed, a team that were 1 point off of relegation, showed that if you give players like that the time, and then you've got a high line, you've got a willing forward like Ollie Watkins, who was just, I thought he was very good on the day, even though he was gifted the first goal and stuff. His work rate was brilliant. Then you've got someone like Jack Grealish, who's very comfortable on the ball, going past people. If you cannot get tight enough and your line is that high, you're going to get beat. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do, because something has to change. The aggressiveness in their closing down has got to be more intense, like they were against Arsenal. Arsenal, I know it was at Anfield, but It was like, I felt like I was suffocating in my house.
Yeah.
They had so much pressure on. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
But
That
Sadio
didn't
Mane,
happen.
I think Sadio Mane missing against Villa was the big difference, because he's the one really that implement that.
But Jota,
that high
as well.
press.
Jota, I've seen Jota. I know it's not the same level in respects of the press, what Liverpool do and what Mane does. But Jota's got that about him where
he's got the energy
do that press.
But I think you need an understanding with Firmino and your midfield and Salah to all go together to really put them under pressure, which I don't think they had without Mane.
If there's no pressure on the ball, the line has to drop. And right, he's right. There was no pressure, normally triggered by Sadio Mane. Hopefully he'll be back for them. He did it at Chelsea, didn't he, when the ball went back to Kepa. He ran past about 3 or 4 of them, closed the ball down and tapped it into the net. He's the trigger. He's the one where he goes... Well, there's the pressing victim. We go now. Everyone else flies in behind us. No one triggered that. And then it's like losing the soap in the bath. He couldn't get it back.
That's quite a retro analogy, that one. With that little tin one in front of an open fire. But when you talk about Sadio Mane and the intensity of that, how much more difficult is that for a forward when you've gone 2 goals down early on and then you're just getting further and further behind?
It's really, when you're up there...
And they're going to keep putting the effort in.
when you're up the other end and you're just seeing it going wrong and you're trying to do your bit, but for some reason, then you've got to realise as well, Villa's confidence now is flowing, because from back to front, Villa's confidence just grew and grew. And when you're up front, like you saw Salah couldn't do any more, scoring goals and doing his stuff. You're just looking back thinking, what the hell's going on? What is going on? We can't seem to get it right today for some reason. And all the time that was happening, they might have tried to get closer. They were exploiting spaces behind and Robinson, behind Trent Alexander. They were just doing he really gave Trent Alexander a chasing, and Jack Grealish. We were speaking about it earlier on, because of the confidence that they grew, and then Liverpool couldn't get it going. And I literally cannot wait to see this weekend to see how he's going to get it all back. How they're going to get it back. Obviously, Mane is going to be a difference, but it's really intriguing.
Because Klopp's talked in detail about that sort of risk-reward balance, and I suppose the idea is that Trent Alexander-Arnold doesn't get put in those positions. So when you see him like that, he's one, it's not his strong point, and 2, he's not used to it. Yeah,
and England played international last night. He sits on the bench and doesn't come on. I mean, there's a kick up the backside. I think it's the competition what he needs. Reece James now, the Chelsea boy, looks like he's overtaken him international. I think Alexander-Arnold, we know how good he is. Him and Robertson on the left-hand side, him on the right-hand side, the assists they make. But it's also about defending. When you see Leeds come first game of the season and they say, you know what? I think everyone looked at this and thought, Bielsa's having a go. And they lost the game, but it was 4-3. They really took it to Liverpool. And I think Villa done exactly the same. Let's not sit back. Let's not wait to get beat. Let's have a go. We've got Ross Barkley in there now. We've got Jack Grealish. We've got Ollie Watkins. We've got players, McGinn. We've got players who can have a go at Liverpool. To give them the confidence to do it, I think that is the benchmark now. For the other teams, you're playing against Liverpool, don't sit back and wait to get beat. You've done that last year and they lifted the trophy. Have a go at them. See what they're made of when you're put under pressure. And I think that's what we're going to see. It's going to be fantastic for us to watch, because there will be teams who will come unstuck. When they get into their rhythm, Liverpool, and I'm sure they will, they are open-up teams. But these teams are going to come and have a go, start throwing some punches. You stay on the ropes, you get knocked out.
Thiago's going to be back, as is Jordan Henderson. And obviously, everything in a game of significance comes from the captain in the centre midfield, as you know. But it's just the organisation from him, isn't it? And that, as you said, that telling players, that you do have to get, in the absence of a crowd who are going to get on your back, say it at 2-0 down, you need a player in there who's going to be doing it.
Stop the bleeding. It's, as they said, like, listen, guys, no matter what the manager's saying over there, I know he's in the spotlight. Well, I'm telling you on the pitch, you tuck in here, we've been more solid, just organised, not all ranting and raving and shouting all the time. We saw Van Dijk, we saw pictures of him going, come on. It wasn't about that. Jordan would get hold of him and they'd tell him, and he'd say, Wrighty, I need you here, and stay there. And I think he's got that leadership quality. He's not only about what Jordan Henderson does, what we can all see, about the assists, about the goals, about the tackles. It's about what he gives you in the dressing room and at Melwood every single day of the week.
Having talked about all their problems, mostly for Liverpool, despite some of those players coming back, you still think they've got the beating of Everton?
Yeah, I think Everton have been great, but I think they're the champions. I think they've got the better players, and it was just they've got to put it down to a bad day at the office. Yes, they're going to miss Alisson. He's going to be a huge miss. Mane's going to be back. I think they have too much. I really do.
Jules?
I go for a draw. I know it's... I feel on the fence. I know, 2-2.
Yeah.
I'll go for Everton to win.
Yeah.
And simply because I think that they've got nothing to lose. I think it will be a good yardstick for them. And Liverpool coming off of that loss, and they're going to have to do something. There's going to be nerves going into it for me, for Liverpool, whatever happens. We know how good they are. But it's a good opportunity for Everton to take advantage of the fact that if they are not bang on it, then they've got to punish them. That's what it's going to come down to.
Not only is there a Merseyside derby this weekend, but it's also one of those master and apprentice situations as well, as Manchester City take on Arsenal. Pep Guardiola's assistant for so long, Mikel Arteta, takes his Arsenal side to face City.
Every day without it makes you hungry. It leaves you lingering, wondering, dreaming, imagining what could have been.
For South Africa, manning up and shaking hands, but a game that seemed to be in the bag.
You see, the thing is, you can't stop us.
Finally, the wait is over.
This is our game, and it never left. So here's to another opportunity, a chance to make a name, a chance to remember one.
Well done, Patrick Lambie.
To make it count.
He's done it again! And look at the chase here. They do not do the ordinary.
This is the return of rugby, and we are ready. Get DStv Premium and be a part of the next chapter of the South African rugby story.
So you like it when things get personal. Introducing the ultimate sports app from SuperSport. With its all-new personalized features, now you can choose which sports you want to see. And get notifications for all the game-changing moments so you know when your team scores.
Brilliant! Just brilliant!
And you can then watch it again and again. Whatever you're looking for, we've got you covered.
That is it, South Africa! That is it!
Download the new SuperSport app for a highly personalized sporting experience.
We at ESPN FC are looking forward to welcoming all our DStv viewers to ESPN, the home of American sports.
Let me introduce you to the king. Let you know I ain't playing with you.
The football in the real, but we understand it, and hopefully we can finish and come back to play in front of the people.
It's been a long process. We've been through very different stages, but now we are really excited. We are back doing what we want to do.
Walker. De Bruyne. This has come through to Raheem Sterling. It's Manchester City who blast out of lockdown. Here is Mahrez. He's got away from Luiz, who shoved him back, and Anthony Taylor points at the spot, and he is the recipient of a red, and he walks. Well, Manchester City have missed their last 4 Premier League penalties. De Bruyne, with absolute certainty, he has forgotten nothing, and City's domination in the face of Arsenal apparently continues. Here's Aguero for Manchester City, and Sterling, Tierney backpedaling, and there goes Aguero, and in comes Foden, and Manchester City are 3-0 to the good. The Stockport Messi doing his thing. Manchester City have not changed. The champions have not forgotten how. A match full of incident and accident, which, despite all of that, Pep's boys bossed almost throughout.
After a long time, no injuries, good performance, 50 points clear for the 5th in the Premier League. That is so important for the qualification for next season for the Champions League.
Every possible accident that could have happened, hopefully happened today and not in the rest of the 10 games that we have ahead of us.
Manchester City against Arsenal also coming up this weekend, and it's a chance to see Pep Guardiola taking on Mikel Arteta. What is their relationship like, Jules?
I think it's obviously very respectful. They like each other, but they're not the closest friends either. I don't think they see each other out of when they used to work together at City, for example. And it's interesting that Pep, to replace Arteta, has gone to get someone completely different. You would think that maybe he would have gone for someone with a similar profile or brains, and he went for Juan Malilo, who's far more experienced, much older than Arteta. That would bring him something very different,
Less likely to go and get a job of his own.
Yeah, or maybe even to contradict him, I think, because I think Mikel at times really was bold enough to say to Pep, I don't agree with you there. I don't think Juan Malilo is that kind of guy.
Well, Arteta, lots have been said about the difference that he's made at Arsenal. In terms of the way things are, is it about results, or is it about knowing that there is a plan in place, that this looks like something that has a future, that is long-term?
There's a plan in place for definite. And I think when you look at Arsenal's last couple of results and the way
Just before you... How long is it since you feel as though, or you have felt that Arsenal have had a plan?
Since Arteta's come in, a couple of weeks.
Then before that, when was the last time?
Even in the latter stages of Arsene Wenger, I didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what's going to happen, and we were quite easy to dismantle. Same thing happened with Unai Emery, but I think that after a few weeks with Mikel Arteta, you could see the pattern of what he wanted to do. He wanted to play out. There was more organisation. The midfielders knew what they were doing. I like what he done with Xhaka. Kind of dropped Xhaka back. So then Saka went forward and he just dropping his hold. You could just see things like, oh, that fits. And, it just started to work. And you could actually see us playing out from the back and it working with structure. You know what I mean? And like I was saying, the two games what Arsenal won recently where it just didn't work. It didn't work for them. They didn't play well. But they found a way to win the two games. And that is where Arsenal are now. Games that they would have maybe drawn or even lost.
The reason that I interrupted, Wrighty, and I won't do it again to ask that point, is because it sort of sets up the job that Mikel Arteta had and still has on his hands at Arsenal. That it isn't just about moving forward; it's also about sorting out some of the mess that was left behind.
He took over a non-believing group, didn't he, of players, pretty much the same. Yes, Arteta's brought in a few players. Always helps when you win. If you win the FA Cup, all of a sudden he comes in there bringing the FA Cup, walking in the dressing room, dancing around with the players. Feel-good factor. Sign Aubameyang, huge signing for the football club, because that is their game plan at the moment. And Arteta, and I'm sure it's an evolving identity which he's got, because the Arsenal fans won't be happy with watching this for years and years. He will evolve it. It is a counter-attacking style. He's asking players, he's convincing the likes of Aubameyang to run back into the left-back spot, and Lacazette dropping so deep into the midfield areas, and Pepe on the other side when he plays. Whoever it is, they know they have to work very, very hard out of possession and not concede any spaces. And that's going to be crucial against Man City. It's almost like Man City are sitting ducks for this counter-attacking side with so much pace and firepower up front at Man City, of Arsenal. They will just sit in. They will let City have all possession. Arteta knows them as well as Pep knows them. And he know where the weaknesses are. And the weaknesses are, for Man City, defensively, because they get exposed. The midfield do not really cover up the back players. That's not how Pep likes to play. It's how we love to watch football play. Or certainly I do. I love watching Pep Guardiola, the size, the low free spirits, all playing off-the-cuff football, with a certain amount of organisation. But he wants them to score goals and outscore the opposition. I think it'd be very difficult to break down a very rigid Arsenal side. And I think it possibly could be a perfect game for Arteta.
Yeah, it could be very nicely set up for them, potentially. We'll talk about City as well in a second, and the threat that they pose. But you'll know that Arsene Wenger has a book out. And the reason you'll know that is because he's been interviewed absolutely everywhere about it. And he's been asked a lot about Mesut Ozil. And he is a sort of recurring theme. And it almost feels that everything that could be said about him has been said until the international break, when suddenly Mesut Ozil pops up and says, Arsenal are letting Gunnosaurus go. I'll pay his wages. And then suddenly you've got the Mesut Ozil story that you never thought you were going to see. But Wenger made the point. It's very sad about Mesut Ozil for him as a player as much as it is for the football club. But is that it done now? Is his time at Arsenal finished and it's just going to fizzle out in the background?
I feel that's the way he's taken. Yeah, I think if they had any offers for him this summer, they would have tried to sell him. He played a bit at the beginning under Arteta, although that was a very different style of football and team that what we see now, where the team, as Wrighty was explaining, is far more advanced in the project than they were back in December, where Merseyside played and didn't do too bad, actually. I think that now the intensity is wrong for him. I think the way they play, the system, the formation, in that team that we saw, the 3-4-3, there's no room. He can't play anywhere. He can't really play on the right instead of Willian. He can't play on the left instead of Aubameyang. Certainly not in the two in midfield. So there's just no room for him either. And I just think that plus maybe a few issues at training with Arteta, it's just, it looks like it's the end.
And so you look at the way that Arsenal are set up at the moment and the new players who've come in. How cleverly have they picked players to fill gaps in that system that Mikel Arteta wants to play?
Well, centre half is something that with William Saliba. Saliba is somebody that we're hoping will kick on. He's obviously not ready, but we've seen Gabriel's come in at centre half and he's very good. I think that we've been very fortunate that the Saka's emergence through the youth team has been just magnificent. I think
current holder of the nicest man in football title.
Is that right? Yeah. And I think when you look at I think the Thomas Partey signing is again, it's the kind of signing that's who he wanted. We're not talking about a midfielder that people may feel is just a stopper and a destroyer and impossible to him. This guy progresses the ball, and the problem that Arsenal have, as well as Dani Ceballos can play on the ball, and as well as Xhaka is nice passers, they don't progress it. And that's what Thomas Partey will do. He'll get the ball into areas, he can run with the ball, he can pass the ball. Hopefully he can activate the right-hand side just as much as Arsenal's left-hand side. Because what Mikel Arteta wants to do, and Tim's right, yes, we do play counter-attacking. Because at the end of the day, we have to stay deep because we've got the pace up front to hurt teams. But now you get a midfielder who we could say, hang on a minute, if we win it, we can be a little bit more constructive with the way we get up there, because you can't have a player like Aubameyang scoring 2 goals in one game and then you get another game totally isolated of chances at all. So you've got a midfielder now who can, alongside someone like Willian, and hopefully Pepe will continue to get better. You've got people who can create further forward in the pitch.
Partey's a massive signing for him. Huge. I mean, that was a problem area they had. It was a void in their midfield area, and he gives them that thrust, gives them that power. Also, I think a massive thing for Arteta to bring him to the football club is his mentality. I mean, he's played for Atletico Madrid under Simeone, and what does he demand? I mean, they win 1-0 like 12 times a season. You know, that's what they do. So he's got the responsibility. He knows he's reliable. He sticks to the game plan. And if we've got a manager in the Premier League at the moment who's got a real identity at game plan, it has to be Arteta.
You've seen him in the international break in action. Is he ready to step in at Arsenal as well, despite not having necessarily been around his new teammates that much?
I think he would be ready physically. He's fit. He played with Ghana the 2 games. I think there's no problem. He would train, he would have trained Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for example. We were saying with Wrighty, maybe it's just not the game to start him now. Maybe you can bring him on, I don't know, depending on how the game goes. To start him, I would wait a little bit, just for him to see and have a look. It's hard to play against City, even if it's not the greatest City. It's still a bit difficult. Maybe don't start him this one, and then there's a game after that straight on.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Does he learn the plan? He might need to learn the plan. You know, he might need to wait a little bit. You know, Jurgen Klopp does this when he brings signings in. He doesn't throw them in straight away. He gives them time to have a look at the situation, how the identity of the game plan of what the manager wants. And I think that's what Mikel would do with Partey.
I think as well with him having to play at Atletico Madrid is that, yes, he's had to play a different kind of way, but I think that he was actually suppressed at Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of the kind of midfielder he is. And I think that people may feel that he's a different kind of player, and that's why they might think, oh, he's one of those destroyers, and that he's totally the opposite. And that is what I'm excited to see from him.
So once he's had time to have a look around and listen to what Arteta wants from him, this is what you think Arsenal are going to look like at pretty much full strength. How much do you appreciate this starting 11 for Arsenal?
Yeah, I'd love to see it, because I think that starting 11, and we're talking about playing at the top of their game, maybe Willian, Pepe. If Pepe can continue his form, would probably take Willian's place. But, you look at that left side, awesome, natural. Those 3 guys there, Xhaka, Saka, Tierney, all left footers, natural balance there. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang coming in off the left there. Then you've got Willian, Partey will be coming through. Gabriel, with the experience of David Luiz there. Hector Bellerin is playing, for me, some of his best football. I'm really pleased to see him back to something like we know how good he is. And I think Suarez is maybe pushing him, and it's a good thing. But that, for me, is probably Arsenal's strongest team, maybe with Pepe in it.
Who's the most important person on that picture?
For me, Aubameyang.
And not the man on the left-hand side, Mikel Arteta.
Well, of course, Mikel Arteta, without a shadow of doubt, but we're talking about on that
pitch. Yeah.
Because if we can start getting Thomas Partey and Saka and all these guys to get that ball another 15, 20 yards up the pitch and get Aubameyang coming in off there, he takes half chances.
It's interesting listening to you talking about and saying maybe Suarez could be coming in, Pepe if he was back up at full pelt. And there's lots of strength in that Arsenal squad outside of that Maitland-Niles potentially coming in. There's lots of cover.
Yes, Ceballos, obviously he's not in the starting 11 now, and you've got then the youngsters like Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah, who has done amazingly well with England under 21 in this international break. So there is depth there. I think they can even switch the play. We know that Mikel likes 4-3-3 formation coming from Pep again, and how they work together. And I think Partey would fit very well in there too. So you could move on when Saliba is ready. He can come in the back four, in the back three. So I think there's a lot of options for them. They just need that little extra that maybe Thomas Partey will bring in terms of creativity, because at times this season I think Arsenal are 19th in terms of chances created, which is obviously not enough.
Yeah, and he could be the player who starts the moves that kind of build towards that.
Just to progress the ball more. Like you say, I think last season he had 54 take-ons and out of 60 something, and he was just like, I think Arsenal's best player was Ceballos with 27. So if you can get anywhere near those numbers, then you're going to be creating a lot more for the guys up front. You don't want to see Lacazette coming too deep. You don't want to see that. You want to see them stretching the teams, giving space to people like Partey to go and operate in. And then you get people like Aubameyang coming in and maybe getting those passes through, because he's got that about him, Thomas Partey.
And you were suggesting that Arteta was the most important person in that picture, because it's his vision that kind of holds it all together. It's interesting how much he's taken from Pep Guardiola and how much of it is just his own way and adapts to that group of players that he has.
Well, I'm sure Mikel would like to go and play like Pep plays. I'm sure he would eventually, but he knows he's going to work with what he's got. And there was some bleeding there. There was a little bit of problems, what he was left, and he's had to build it slowly. And I think he's doing a good job at that. Winning a trophy obviously massively helps. Players start listening to you. And like I say, he's asking players to play for Arsenal. It's one of the biggest clubs in the country. You know, that's why we talk about Partey, who's been at Atletico Madrid. And yes, he's had the shackles on him a wee bit, you know. But now you would think that it's important that he doesn't go to Arsenal and think, oh, now I'm here, I've arrived, I'm in London, I'm in the Premier League, the best league in the world, and what I'm going to do is start being something different. Arteta will tell him it's a great art of management when you're managing top draw players who can go to some of the biggest teams all over the world and tell them to do the dirty stuff in the game, the horrible stuff when no one really wants. You're not getting headlines from running back, tracking back, tackling people. Don't give you the headlines if you're a striker. You need to be scoring goals. But he's got a knack of making top draw players work hard first and foremost. And he knows at the moment that's the way he's got to go about it. Whereas Pep, on the other hand, always had that winning that ball back. And I think they've come away from that a little bit at the moment. I think they've got a few problems at Man City.
Yeah, I wonder if that's part of it, is that was Mikel Arteta, one of Mikel Arteta's main roles at Manchester City, was that link to the players and that almost kind of psychological role with them and getting that out of them. Is it the same with his new assistant for Pep Guardiola? No, certainly not. Start with the language, because I don't think Juan Malilo speaks very good English like Mikel, and certainly Mikel was a player not that long ago. You know, far more recently than Pep was, and even more than Lilo is. So I think the players related to that because some of them have even played against Mikel Arteta in the Premier League. And I think that makes a big difference if you're the assistant and you do that link between your manager or that technical staff and your players, because you're still one of them very much. Mikel was taking part of the rondos. He was taking part of every drills that he wanted to, etc., etc. Juan Malilo can't do that. Pep Guardiola doesn't do that anymore even. So I think that was a big part that they lost, and somehow, you know, I think there was rumours that they tried Vincent Kompany to be the assistant, or at least be part of the technical staff, and that would have been very much who to replace Arteta with. And just to finish on Arteta and Arsenal, let's not forget, it's not even a year in his project. And I was at the Liverpool game when they lost 3-1, but he said at the end,
Jurgen Klopp took 5 years to build this incredible team and this incredible club. But I'm not even a year in my project. And even Pep, it took him more than a year to build a successful City team. His first season was not very good in the Premier League. So let's give him time. But already what he's done in 9 months is pretty impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it does feel he's getting the time, Mikel Arteta. There's no suggestion that people are impatient, that they can see the progress. But maybe there is some impatience at the moment around Manchester City, and the sense that in the sense that they had not just that they haven't started this season particularly well, but the fact that they finished so far behind Liverpool last season, and maybe even more significantly that they didn't make it count in the Champions League at the end of the season.
No, I think that it must have been tough for City with the way Liverpool emerged. The season before, Liverpool chasing them down and they're beating them by 1 point. Liverpool lost it on 97 points, and then the next season Liverpool just absolutely just wiped the floor with them. Mentally, knowing they're coming in that season, the one point season, then they came and then they totally obliterated you, and then they started the season again. There seems to me to be at Manchester City a problem mentally now, because they almost, you can't call a team like that shot. But we're talking about Pep going into his 5th season, the first time with the same club. I think it might be the first time he's rebuilding. We're seeing the problems he's had with Man City, trying to get a defence that's worthy of the football that they play offensively. And it just seems like at the moment, the team, what I saw against Leeds especially, was a team that just looked a little bit weary. I thought Kevin De Bruyne looked, I wouldn't say tired, but he looked a bit like a frustrated figure. Because...
So as someone who watches football, you watch a player and you might think they look tired, they look frustrated. But what does that come from? What's like in a practical sense? What is that from a player's point of view?
He might be looking around and thought about the past glories or something, what he's seen, how we used to be, and then he's in and around, and they're not like that. There's no David Silva there. There's no Aguero up top. There's no Vincent Kompany behind. Players that he can fit in and just go about his business now. It just seems to be now, for me, with Kevin De Bruyne, a much more responsibility on him. And I think that might be taking its toll at the moment. I think that you're hoping that someone like Ruben Diaz can come in and settle quickly. I think he's going to have to. And when you go to a club like City, you have to settle quickly, because they're looking to win the league. They're looking to go deep in Champions League. So you can't give them too much time to have to settle in. They have to settle in. You've got people like Fernandinho having to play in centre-half. They're missing something from the midfield when he goes there. Because Rodrigo, for me, he's not got that defensive capability that Fernandinho. So they're losing a lot. They've lost Kompany, who's massive down that centre. Silva down the centre, and Aguero. There's a lot going on there that if I was a player, I'd probably start feeling a little bit like... And they train as hard, like you said, Julian. Yeah. They really, really train intently. So it can get to a point where as a player, you're feeling a bit like... I'm kind of tired, man, and Liverpool's so good.
Yeah. Is there an issue with recruitment at Manchester City, do you think?
Seems to be a little bit of because they've got so much money, it's a scattergun approach. He's available, should we go and get him? Rather than what do we actually need, shall we just target this person? But I've said it on this show and many shows, time and time again, Pep doesn't blame his defence ever. He doesn't see that as a weakness. He's spent hundreds of £1 million trying to put it right, but he would always point to the fact that they're not clinical enough. And without Aguero, they're never going to be clinical enough, because Jesus needs a lot of chances to score goals. We're not saying he's a bad player. Of course he's not. They've lost Leroy Sané, lost David Silva, as Wrighty just said. They're weaker. They're weaker offensively, and defensively they haven't got it right yet. There's a problem there. I love the way he plays, and I don't want him to change. We want to watch players just going out there with the freedom. But you get that tired and you get sapped when you don't win. Mm-hmm. When you win football matches, you don't feel tired at all. You just want to bounce into the next one. And I think they're just one result away from hitting it. And I think that they'll put a run together and they'll be there at the end of the season.
Because the quality hasn't
dropped. The quality.
I mean, maybe, as you said, they've lost a couple of players, but their quality is too good.
And Pep wouldn't manage any other way. We talk about the intensity of him every single day, but that's the way he manages. And I know it's his 5th year. But he won't change his ways. What he would do is come away from it. He'll just walk away and say, I took this team as far as I could possibly do. But he won't do that till the end of the season. I can't see him walking away mid-term.
Tim, if they, excuse me, if they defend and don't close down Arsenal, like they played against Leeds, they'll get beat. They'll get beat comfortably as well.
Yeah,
and also, I think the fact that he plays now a double pivot in front of his back four with Fernandinho and Rodri, instead of just having one of the two, whoever, shows you that either he's a bit too worried defensively by how poor they are, or because he's trying to change maybe a little bit, have De Bruyne a bit more central, having more verticality maybe. But that little tweak tactically, I think is quite interesting.
He did that in the Champions League and he would come unstuck. You know, they were always going to dominate the football. I think they got... Listen, I think Bayern Munich were a different class and they probably would have gone on and won it anyway. But not having two legs in that game really punished them. I think that over two legs they beat Lyon.
Yeah.
But he played that double pivot in that game and everyone was scratching their heads thinking, well, the whole world knows you're going to dominate the possession of football. You need as many as you can who can operate in tight areas and open them up. And they didn't have that.
Yeah, but Pep does that, though. Especially in the Champions League.
So, yeah.
He just overthinks. He does something.
Yeah.
He just
Do you think maybe he was thinking ahead to if they faced Bayern Munich and thinking that he might... So he was thinking, I might get away with that against Lyon, but
not against them. And I think there's maybe, you know, when you got a manager like Pep, I just get the impression that he's constantly thinking about what's something up there, the chess moves, 4 or 5 moves ahead, instead of, you know, I'm going to deal with this right now and let this happen, and then I'll deal with that then. And I think that it's been his undoing, especially in the Champions League for Manchester City.
It must take a special kind of player in terms of their sort of psychological makeup to play for Pep Guardiola. If you are taking on that level of instruction and intensity every day, because Vincent Kompany talked about it, didn't he? About it being like being at university every single day without a break throughout the whole of the season, which for some players would be amazing. They would look forward to it. For other players, it wouldn't be a natural fitness. So how would you?
I'd probably find that very difficult.
You would.
No, I would. I'd find that difficult because, you know, to have that much information continually, and to be in training, having to be like that. When's the relaxing time? I'm not saying that you're meant to be relaxing, but you know what I mean. I found it tough under George Graham, the way it was regimented, the way we had to defend and where we had to be, and you know what I mean. I was with him for a few years, yes, but I hated it after 6 months. Yeah. You know, but like you get on with it. But like after a while, you do start to feel, oh God, this is just like, can't deal with this. It's just so draining. And you see Pep after games. I saw him after the FA Cup final, still coaching Raheem Sterling on the sideline. Yeah. You know what I mean? To the point where Raheem Sterling was like, yes, okay.
You saw his shoulders go down, didn't you? And just Which, and look, we're reading into his body language. You don't know what he might have thought. Oh, that's amazing. I've got a manager who's still trying to make me better every second. But it looked he was.
The way I saw Raheem Sterling's face, it was like, give me a break, man.
I'm just not sure about my mind-reading skills.
Yeah. He even does it with opposition player. Remember Nathan Redmond?
No, Nathan Redmond.
Yeah, which was crazy. Like he's not even your player. And then at the end of the game, you go like, you should be
doing this.
And even that, just you watching on television, you go like, wow, I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm tired of this.
But also, especially when, say for example, they are so far behind in the league as they were last time around, when they do have a difficult result, like the one against Leicester, although from last weekend or weekend before, I think we're probably going to see a lot more of those this season. But when you're coming off the back of something like that, do you need something different as a player?
No, I'm just talking from what I know about Pep, and he will not change. And even in that game when they got beat, you know, it was a counter-attacking Vardy masterclass.
But
they should have been 3-0 down.
I mean, in terms of. Is it harder to take that information in when, as a team, you're not getting the results?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you're winning games, you could say to De Bruyne, even the best players in the world, go and stand on your head over there for 10 minutes. He'll go and do it. You know, they believe in him. But that game we talked about, Leicester game, he should have been 2 or 3 up, and then Leicester have to play differently. If they score first against Arsenal have to come out. Or he wouldn't initially, but sooner, later, longer the game goes, they've got to come out. And then Man City are capable of opening any team up. They've got the quality still. They're just one result away from stringing a set of results together. But and then the confidence comes.
Yeah, but at the same time, Tim, you're playing, and then when you're feeling like when you get together in the dressing room and you say, right, come, let's do it, and you go out, and then it starts happening again where you're not close enough and it's not quite going, you start to get demoralised. And that is where I think that people need to start smelling the blood with City and see if we can push them to that. Because if you can get to their soft underbelly, which I think is the defence, then you've got more than half a
like
chance
Liverpool,
of beating them.
Wrighty?
Well, to be honest, with Liverpool at the moment, with that high line, like we say, we've got to wait for Mane to come back to activate the press and Liverpool get back to what they're doing. But with City, I don't know where the enthusiasm and the buzz is going to come back for them to get that, because it's almost seems like they're all looking for De Bruyne to do something at the moment. Whereas, you know, when Mane comes back, that press is back. Yeah. And if you don't get it right, Liverpool are going to punish you. City don't see it at the moment.
So you said one result could kickstart things for Manchester City. Will it happen against Arsenal?
I think it will. I think this will be the one. They'll score first, Arsenal will come out, it'll be a little bit reckless late on in the game, and City just continually open them up. Please, God.
Go on.
Well, I think that City are going to do what they do. They're going to try and play it. I think Arteta's got one over him at the moment. Yep. I genuinely believe that, and I think that we'll just sit off them, and no, we could take them on the break.
It'll be very difficult.
Honestly, and I think that it's the kind of game where I know that Aubameyang, this is Aubameyang's kind of game. Yeah. I could just feel that Arsenal are going to nick this one.
A draw. I'm a draw mood today. I'm in a draw mood. I'm good. I'm allowed.
I think both games we've done so far, we've had an absolutely even balance around the whole of the team. Coming up, we're going to be talking about two teams who've had really impressive starts to the season. Tottenham and West Ham face each other this weekend.
FNP Stadium, where Amakosi, Abafana Bokchula Nokolo, will be playing host to Marispec United, the team of choice. Ikopito, Lucas Masterpieces Moripe Stadium, Amasanda Wanagabuyelo will be playing host to Bloemfontein Celtic. Siwalele Samasele, Izodlali TV. Imbizo, uzoyithola la ku SuperSport PSL. Stay connected to DStv Compact to watch ibhola elishisayo ku MTN 8. Broadcast sponsored by MTN. Wafa.
Get DStv Premium's dedicated channels for unmissable rugby, cricket, Grand Slams, majors, football and more. It's unrivaled access to the biggest sporting events in the world.
This is your champion.
That's the premium difference.
Manchester United have reached the promised land. Zidane! It's Zinedine Zidane! Wonderful from Kaka. It's that's brilliant. That is beyond special. Drogba lashes it home. It's Drogba. The unthinkable unfolds before our eyes. A wild celebration for a goal from his wildest dreams.
The UEFA Champions League. Get and stay connected to DStv to watch every game on SuperSport. We've got the world's best football.
2 goals from Robbie Fowler in 1999 helped stop a run of 5 years without a Liverpool win in the fixture. Another classic meeting 2 years later ended with Gary McAllister snatching a late win for Liverpool and giving them their first win. The 2004-05 season also saw the Blues become the top club in Merseyside for the first time in 18 years. A 3-0 victory over Liverpool in 2006-07 saw Everton record their biggest derby win in the Premier League era.
Everton have scored 3 in the derby for the first time since 1966.
But Rafael Benitez's Liverpool side had re-established their dominance in the league, finishing 10 points clear of Everton that season. By now, Everton last Premier League victory over the Reds.
It looks like it's going to be Everton's day in the derby.
A year later, Liverpool completed a double as Steven Gerrard became the first man to score a hat-trick in the fixture in 30 years.
Hat-trick in front of the Kop on derby night.
The arrival of Roberto Martinez and Brendan Rodgers brought a more attacking edge to these meetings. Their 3-3 draw at Goodison Park in 2013-14 became the highest scoring Merseyside derby in Premier League history.
Daniel Sturridge in this seesaw Merseyside derby.
The gulf between the teams has increased in recent years, but Liverpool needed the most bizarre of goals to beat their nearest and not so dearest in the 2018-19 season.
And it's by Wrighty! Liverpool have won it! So impossibly late!
The Merseyside derby remains one of the most passionate fixtures in the Premier League.
Yes, Gareth Bale is back, and it looks like he's going to be available for Tottenham to take on West Ham. He's back in lots of ways, Tim, because it felt as though his time at Real Madrid, he just fell out of love with the game. You saw a little bit of it when he played for Wales, the kind of old personality that we saw in those old Tottenham clips. Is he going to get that back, as well as Spurs getting the talent that he has?
I think by coming back to the Premier League, this tells you he is. You know, he's not going for a holiday. He's come and put himself under pressure. You know, he's coming back to a place where he's loved. And rightly or wrongly, the fans are going to expect him to be the Gareth Bale what left 7 years ago. Now, if he's going to replicate that, I doubt. If he could be half the player he is, then Tottenham have got a very good signing on their hands. I think Daniel Levy's done brilliantly to bring him back. It's not cheap. It's a free transfer, but his wages are very, very high, or what they're paying from Real Madrid. So, look, if he is anything like he was, him, Son and Harry Kane, fantastic front three. You know, there's a lot of pressure on Tottenham now. Everyone expects it. You know, there's a few people coming out and saying possibly could be challenging for the league title. I think they are, in my opinion, can they finish in the top four? I would say yes. I think they've got such a good squad of players now. They've got a manager who seems to have a game plan which suits the likes of the counter-attacking players of Son, of Kane, of Gareth Bale. They've got a very stodgy midfield, very tough, strong. Look to have a nice blend. So hopefully, I mean, I'm not sure he plays this weekend. I think he's fit to play, but I'm thinking Jose might let him have a look from the bench and introduce him off the bench, because West Ham are going well as well. Yeah, they are going well at the moment. I think you're the second former Tottenham manager to say that Spurs could be mounting a title challenge, if not necessarily winning the Premier League this season. And you've been saying it for a little while. It feels as though there's something bubbling under the surface. Yeah. Now they can add a little bit of stardust to it.
Yeah, and because what's happened with Mourinho, he's come in and he gets to that stage where you think, oh, he's upsetting everyone. And all of a sudden, bam, it changes. The players get it. They start, and then we see a performance like the Man United. Yeah. I think with Gareth Bale, I think that him watching how Cristiano Ronaldo kind of managed his game, latter stages of Cristiano Ronaldo's time at Real Madrid, is something that he's probably going to do here at Spurs. I don't expect him to be running all over the place. I expect him to be in that last third of the field, and we'll see the explosivity and all that sort of stuff. We'll see the great goal, might see some free kicks, but I think he's going to manage his game for that end of the pitch.
And as much as everybody talks about the fact that his game sort of dropped off towards the end at Real Madrid, how much of that is actually true? How much of his game has dropped off in that time?
I think it's hard to say, because last season, if you look at it, for example, so when he was playing, it was hard because I think he needs momentum. He's the kind of player with his pace and everything that if he hasn't played for 6 weeks, it will be very hard over an hour to do something special. So I think the more he will play, the sharper he will be and the better he will be on the pitch. And it was quite difficult the last two seasons to judge his level because of that lack of consistency in how often he was playing. But I agree with him. I think he's an incredible talent. It's a great story as well. I can only see positives out of it, really. Yeah, it could only be positive for Tottenham and for Jose Mourinho. Tim mentioned him and said, they've got a manager there who's got a system that gets the best out of the players that they have, that allows those kind of counter-attacking players to get forward at the right moment.
Did we write off Jose a little bit? And were we a bit early in that?
No, I don't think so. No, because he kind of rubs you up in a way where it's almost like he wants you to do that, and then he comes back with something like this. Then all of a sudden you start thinking, wow, you know, can you really write Tottenham out of like the top four? And if Liverpool, Man City, and everybody are going to be as inconsistent as they've started up to this point, then you know you're looking at somebody who knows how to navigate this league. With the players he's got, you know, you're talking about somebody who can pick up the pieces, man, run with the ball. So, you know, it's going to be interesting because I've been saying it for a while. Spurs, there's something happening. It kind of makes me uncomfortable. I've got the washing machine stomach because once they signed him and he was there, that's probably lifted the whole club. And I think that it's no coincidence. Yes, Man United were terrible. But, like, you have to give Tottenham credit for totally dismantling them. And I think that Gareth Bale being in and around it has added to that factor. Yeah. It really, really has.
And yet, do you think that some of their more important signings have been the less glamorous ones? You talked about that sort of tough midfield. Yeah. And the fact that it might be a bit... Yeah.
Højbjerg's been very good. Number 6, I think he's an upgrade on what they had. I think he can break the game up. He also get turned on his back foot and pass the ball forward. Reguilón, very, very highly rated, played in La Liga, up and down. I think he'd be a very good signing. But they've signed players who know the league, didn't they? So, apart from Reguilón there, they know Gareth Bale, he hasn't got to know about anything about the Premier League. Doherty, right wing back or right back, was fantastic at Wolves, and for £13.4 million is absolutely no money. What Jose's got the best knack, there's an ingredient you need to be a very successful manager. And that's persuading the owners to spend money. And Jose does that better than any person I've ever met, even Daniel Levy. He persuades them to spend the money because he convinces them that the squad isn't good enough. And he's managed to do that perfectly at Tottenham because now he's got a stronger group.
Was he right, though? Was the squad good enough?
Good enough for what? I mean, it's what their objectives are. He would say, obviously told Daniel, which the objectives for Daniel Levy would be finishing in the top 4. So he obviously said, with this group of players, we're not going to. If you let me have Bale, Højbjerg, Doherty, Reguilón, the players who he's brought in to have Joe Hart as a reserve goalkeeper, then I'll get you to the top 4. And he's convinced him. And he said, OK. And at the moment, you'd have to say he's on track to do that. Jose Mourinho won't always play the best players in the squad. What he'll do is he'll pick the best team and he wants reliable, responsible players. And then at the top end of the field, he wants flair. And he builds a really stodgy... I'm not criticising by saying stodgy. It's a pragmatic approach. Responsible, fill gaps, no space, defend better. He's not sure about his defensive partnership. Eric Dyer looks to be a mainstay, whether it's Toby Alderweireld, whether it's Sanchez. He's not sure about that at the moment. I think he's still learning about that. He's got Hugo Lloris, who's one of the best goalies in the league. But up front is where it's all happening. And he expects the nice solid base to give them the freedom to go and win the game.
Let's take a look then at what we think he might be looking at, or what Spurs' best 11 might look like if everyone were fit and available. And you've already described it, that kind of solid base, and that talent at the front of the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Lo Celso for me was one of the most improved before the end of last season. He was one of the most improved players they had at the club. He really was coming to his own. I'm not sure he would play in there. He's the question mark. I think they might go for someone a little bit more reliable, responsible, defensive, if want of a better word. But the rest, only Davinson Sanchez, I would suggest, might be a question mark over him. I think Doherty or Serge Aurier, he's got options there now. Lamela, who played in the last game, he might play. I think instead of Bale will come up for this game and watch from the sideline, possibly. Lamela's improved as well. I mean, they're buying into Jose at the moment. Why are they buying into him? They're buying into him because they're winning football matches. If you win football matches, like we talked about with Guardiola and Mikel Arteta, it helps, and the players listen.
Where are we with Dele Alli at the moment?
Nowhere, really. I mean, it's such a shame because the talent is there. You know him really well. I mean, there's no doubt. However, he also has to understand that, you need the right attitudes when you're not playing games, at training, when you're in your house, when you're with your friends or your family, everything. Well, I bet now with the restriction, but you see what I mean? You have to be a pro all the time. 24/7, 100%, 1,000%, anything you want. And it's just not relying on your talent is not enough anymore. And I think Lo Celso is probably a bit less talented than Dele Alli. So is Lamela. But they have the work rate and the hard work that Dele Alli hasn't had for the last 18 months. And I think at some point, that's the difference.
Is it the difference for Dele Alli, the fact that he's maybe not committed at every level of his preparation and of the game?
No, I think he is. I don't know him as a boy. I know him what I've seen as a player. I know he's a very good player. He's not turned into a bad player overnight. And maybe Jose, I mean, he's got it wrong before. I mean, De Bruyne, Mo Salah, you know, if I'm Dele Alli, I'm rolling my sleeves up and saying, look, if he's not going to be here, I'll go somewhere else and I'll be a superstar and I'll prove you wrong. Again, like you've been proved wrong a few times before. But for Jose, he doesn't care about Dele Alli. I mean, why should he? All he cares about is winning football matches. And he worried about the team, not the individual. That's what good managers do.
Dele Alli's still got a role there, do you think, from a football perspective?
Without a doubt, a player of his ability. You don't know what's going on. Like I say, with Jose, he does go in, and there's always seems to be a casualty of war with him. So in this particular moment, it's Dele Alli. But you always find with Jose that there does seem to be a way back if you want it. So I'm hoping that Dele wants it, because I do know Dele, and I know that he misses playing, and why wouldn't you? You know, you want to be back at the top. He had a lot of success very early, and so I think he wants to get back to that. But like, it looks like he's going to have to put some serious work in to get back on the right side of Mourinho for some reason.
What kind of work? In what sense?
Well, the manager needs to see whatever he may not be seeing on the training ground. I think I heard and read something the other day saying about he doesn't, lazy trainer, he doesn't...
I've seen the documentary, the documentary, he tells him face to face.
And I remember watching Dele from a young boy, 17 he was, when I was at MK Dons with him, and he always trained in that way. I like to think that I'm the same. I trained, I wouldn't say I was like, every day I was like, but like, I seemed to just be able to put it on a Saturday because I was ready to go. I made sure I concentrated on hitting the target in training, but I wouldn't say I was one of those trainers that was like, right at it like that. Maybe he's one of those.
Yeah.
And Jose needs to see that. But he needs to do something to get himself the right side of Jose. Because like I say, I think something's happening at Tottenham. And if that's the case, then they're going to need players of his calibre to be amongst it as well.
But then they're going to need to be happy. They're going to need to be ready. Then when he calls about them to come in and do the job. I mean, you're talking about, we've all played with training ground players who are fantastic throughout the week and they can't play on a Saturday. Yeah. And there's vice versa. Some of them are very lazy trainers. And when the crowd's there, we're not at the moment, unfortunately, but when they go onto that crowd, you know you're going to get a performance. But normally the managers can recognise that when they've played.
Yeah.
Jose never played. He never played that level, so he does it. And really, it's not Jose's fault. It's Dele's fault, because if that's the only way he's going to get into the team, he needs to train 100% as a way. Play as you train as you play.
Can you do that? Can you change how you train if you've always been quite relaxed in training? Can you become
more effort? You can. Well, the thing about it is if you've got a manager and the coaching staff that lets you get away with getting through it, but they know, he'll be all right on a Saturday. You get a manager like Jose comes in and says, "No, I want more than that," and then it's up to you to say, "Well, I just have to raise the intensity up." You have to do that. That's what training's for.
George Graham, George Graham, you had Wrighty all the time. George used to say himself, he trained very sloppily. But he knew when he crossed that line at the weekend, he'd be one of the top players. Yeah. And he knew, because he'd been in the environment, he smells the situation.
Yeah.
And Tanguy and Ndombele had loads of issues with Jose Mourinho, a very stormy relationship. Yeah. And then there's a point where they had a chat, and now he played really well at Old Trafford against United, scored the first goal, and now he's back in the team. We could have put him
instead of
Sissoko or Sissoko even, because he has that very unique profile as well. But it didn't work before because he was not having the right attitude and not putting the effort in our training. And since he's changed that, it's much better now between him and Mourinho.
But as you said, it's going to be difficult against West Ham at the weekend. Where's their start to the season come from?
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Mikel Antonio's absolutely on fire, isn't he? Declan Rice in the number 6 area, just patrolling in there. Jared Bowen. They've got good players now, the good players who know what is expected of them. They work hard out of possession. They're well organised. They move forwards as a team together. There's no divides. There's no splits between... The distance now between the back players and the front players is far better. The distances. Whereas before they were always stretched and they were open to the counter-attack. I think they'd be difficult to beat. I think Moisey and his coaching staff have got something going there.
You know
we
what?
didn't see this in the opening 2 games of the season.
No,
this is just suddenly
confidence
clicked.
with a win.
It is confidence with a win, and they kind of you know what they do. You watch them; they've done what Arsenal have done. They've gone to 3-4-3, and then they change it sometimes to a 5-4-1 when they defend it. It works. You got, like you mentioned, Jared Bowen, Fornals on the other side, Mikel Antonio, who, you know, you think to yourself, my gosh, is there anything he can't do in a position when they put him in it? He looks like he's just a natural centre forward. He holds it up well, he runs the lines. And then you've got finally, Fornals, who's somebody that's come with a big rep, you know what I mean, and hardly done anything. Now he seems to be feeding off of him. The same with Jared Bowen, who I think is a brilliant signing, and Souček, brilliant signing, Souček. So, and it looks very solid. You mentioned Declan Rice, you know, but they look a lot more solid as a team now, West Ham.
And David Moyes back on the sidelines, he's returning from his isolation. That would be, imagine you do really well when he's been out and he's been sitting watching, and then he suddenly turns up. It's Tottenham. No shame in losing to Tottenham, but it would just be a bit uncomfortable, wouldn't it?
I mean, he had a big part to play, of course, even from further away in those 2 wins. I find it interesting as well the links with Said Benrahma, the Brentford winger, because he will bring a bit of creativity, that flair that they maybe lost with Felipe Anderson, who went back on loan, who never really had the consistency to have a proper impact. But maybe Benrahma could have that if he can transport the form he had in the Championship into the Premier League. That could be a very
their
good
problem,
signing.
though, Jules.
Because
at the moment they got a nice blend in the middle of the park, and they're all reliable. Where they bring in someone like
you're
that,
right,
David Moyes doesn't always like someone who's going to play as that number 10 position. You have to work hard. So hopefully it doesn't change too much. If they continue to win, there's no need to change.
So they're coming up against this Spurs side. You know, we're talking about the fact that they are very solid, but they have these creative players. West Ham kind of similar, but not the qualities. As much as we're saying this could be a tough match for Spurs, it can be really difficult for West Ham.
It will be difficult for West Ham because, like, we've just seen a Tottenham side totally demolish Man United, who on paper, of course, it's a fantastic team, but that doesn't really win you football matches. What we've seen with West Ham is a team that now look like they're ready to work. They've got a lot of faith in what they've got going forward, and they seem very organised in respect of the defensive side of things. Goalkeeper's more than capable. So when you look at it, you're probably standing in the tunnel, you're looking at it, you say, we're not bad. And like Tottenham will look at them and see what they're capable of and say, yeah, we're going to need to be about ourselves, because if we're not, then the confidence that West Ham have got at the moment with Jared Bowen, with Souček coming from the midfield, with Fornals finding the form, Mikel Antonio, you know what I mean, set pieces, West Ham can be very dangerous as well. All of a sudden, you know what I mean, we're talking about a West Ham side that can frighten teams, and they have. You know what I mean, Arsenal were very fortunate to get a result against West Ham. West Ham have played very well this season up to this point.
Yeah, and they were looking at Josh King as well, weren't they, and sort of adding to that mix as well. Thoughts on this game, Jules?
I would say, I'm kidding. I go for Spurs in these.
Yeah, just because of what we were talking about.
Exactly.
They match up, but maybe Spurs do it a bit better?
I probably think that, depending on if Gareth Bale's playing, I'm going to go with Spurs, but I'm probably going to go with a draw or West Ham to win.
OK, Jules. You're going to go for a draw. No, why do you think it's going to be? Why do you think that West Ham have got what it takes to stop Tottenham?
Because I think that it's the kind of game that, funnily enough, even when I played for West Ham as well, it's the kind of bogey team. West Ham's a little bit of a bogey team for Tottenham, and I think that they know it. They'll go into it knowing that it's going to be a tough game, but if we stick in it, we could get something. And I think that West Ham are in that stick in it mode. We can get something. They're really hanging in. And they've got someone up front at the moment that's on fire in Mikel.
Oh, for me, Tottenham, I think they've got the better players. I think the confidence is just as high at Tottenham as it is at West Ham. Wrighty's absolutely right. They are the bogey side, but for me, I think I'd rather be managing Tottenham rather than West Ham this weekend.
They've got some really good games, Tottenham, between now and the next international break. This could be a fantastic start to the season.
Absolutely. They could win this one. This is the toughest one. They win the next 6 until they play Man City, and then there's a question mark.
Yeah, and then it starts to get a little bit trickier. Although, as we talked about, they have issues of their own, and who knows what way this season is going to go. There have been so many surprises already, and we've only had 3 draws so far this season. Jules has just predicted 2 of them for this weekend.
That's on me.
Jules, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to Tim. as well. Wrighty and I will be back next week when we'll be talking about all the big stories around the Premier League. But there's a whole weekend of Premier League action coming your way. Enjoy all of it. It gets underway with the Merseyside derby. Everton haven't beaten Liverpool in 10 years, but this feels like it might just be the time for them. See you next week. Bye-bye.